the gaze that turns to stone, and the cry that returns as accusation. In the mem, we see the face of Medusa, captured in a moment of horror, mouth open, eyes wide. Snakes instead of hair are not merely a mythological ornament but a symbol. Fear, disgust, dread. In the ancient myth, it is her gaze that turns others to stone. In this mem, however, the dynamic feels reversed, as if she has been petrified by society's gaze. Above the image it reads, men seeing posts naming their gender's violence after millennia of building every system to exploit women, children, animals, and the earth. Around her face are scattered statements. Women are so ungrateful. Society hates men. We gave you your rights. That's sexist. You just want to oppress us. It is powerful, provocative visual commentary. The mem functions as a contemporary mythological allegory. Medusa is no longer a monster, but a mirror. The question is, reflecting to whom? Medusa is a symbol of silenced anger. In the original myth, Medusa was not always a monster. In some interpretations, she was once a beautiful young woman who was punished and only then transformed into a creature whose gaze kills. Her transformation followed violence. It was not born of her guilt. The myth carries an archetypal layer. A woman who has been harmed becomes something the world fears. The mem reclaims this archetype. It gestures toward a dynamic in which women's anger, or more broadly the anger of the oppressed, is often portrayed as excessive, hysterical, hateful. When someone names systemic violence, the conversation quickly shifts, no longer about the violence itself, but about the tone, about the supposed attack on all men, about the sense of threat felt by those who have historically occupied positions of power. Medusa thus becomes a symbol of collective female anger, not as blind destructiveness, but as a response to long-standing inequality. Her snakes may be the words society does not wish to hear. Defense mechanisms, from denial to reversal of blame. The statements surrounding the image reveal common defensive reactions that arise when systemic violence is addressed. Women are ungrateful. Instead of asking whether the criticism is valid, the focus shifts to moral discrediting. If you are ungrateful, you must be wrong. We gave you your rights. This implies that rights are granted as favors rather than recognized as inherent. Society hates men. Structural critique is reframed as a personal attack. That's sexist. Naming gender-based violence is labeled discriminatory. Just want to oppress us. Those who have historically held power feel threatened when that power is questioned. These reactions are not necessarily malicious. Often they stem from fear. When a sense of moral innocence or historical neutrality is shaken, defense mechanisms activate. People instinctively shield themselves from guilt, from shame, from the possibility of being implicated in a larger problem. Systemic violence between abstraction and everyday reality. The mem refers to millennia of building systems. This is a sweeping claim that can provoke resistance. Yet systemic violence is not necessarily a conscious conspiracy. It is frequently the product of cultural norms, laws, economic structures, and symbolic meanings. that have evolved to favor one group over others. Examples are numerous: restrictions on women's autonomy, control over their bodies, economic dependence, the devaluation of unpaid care work, objectification, normalization of aggression. A similar logic applies to humanity's relationship with nature, the exploitation that disregards limits. When someone names these patterns, they are speaking about structures, not necessarily about every individual. Yet individuals often feel personally targeted, and that is where tension emerges. Anger as a legitimate emotion. In societies that traditionally teach women to be pleasant, accommodating, and quiet, anger is subversive. Anger draws a boundary. It says, "This hurts, this is not right." The mem legitimizes that anger, not as blind hatred, but as a response to prolonged imbalance. The problem arises when anger is interpreted solely as attack rather than as a call for a change. There is, of course, a risk of overgeneralization. If critique slips into demonization of an entire gender, it repeats the very logic it opposes. But the mem primarily highlights a paradox. When the oppressed speak, they are quickly accused of exaggeration or hatred. Man as individuals and man as social class. A crucial distinction lies between man as individuals and man as a social class shaped by certain privileges. Critiquing patriarchy is not the same as hating men as people. Yet public disclosure often blurs this distinction. Many men, when confronted with discussions of systemic violence, feel that their own pain, struggles, and vulnerabilities are erased. It is true that men also suffer under the weight of toxic norms, under expectations of emotional suppression and dominance. Acknowledging one reality does not negate the other. A mature dialogue requires the ability to hold two truths at once. Systemic inequalities exist, and individuals are not reducible to systems. The mem as weapon and as a mirror. Memes are fragments of contemporary mythology, concise, sharp, emotionally charged. Their power lies in compression, yet that very power can polarize. The image of Medusa with accusatory quotes may reinforce division, us versus them. At the same time, it can function as a mirror. Someone might recognize themselves in one of those quotes and ask, "Why does this upset me so deeply? Why do I experience critique of a system as an attack on myself?" Such reflection is uncomfortable but transformative. From stone to dialogue. In the myth, Perseus defeats Medusa by using the reflection of his shield, avoiding her direct gaze. Perhaps this suggests the need for reflection. A raw, direct gaze can paralyze. Reflection creates distance and understanding. Today's gender dialogue needs precisely that: mirrors, not swords. It requires the capacity to listen without immediate defense. It demands acknowledgement of historical injustice without collective demonization. It needs a space where anger can be heard without becoming the only language spoken. Conclusion. Medusa as opportunity. The meme is not neutral, it is political, emotional, engaged, but its value lies not only in provocation. It invites reflection on how we respond to critique. Do we deny, counter-attack, or ask what truth might lie within it? Medusa looks at us with her mouth open, as if screaming. Perhaps her scream is not a curse but a warning, not to turn anyone into stone, but to shatter the stone within us, the part that refuses to see. If we can endure that gaze, not as condemnation, but as an invitation to responsibility, the myth can change, not into a story of monster and hero, but into one of shared transformation.